Well, hey everybody, welcome to the channel. This will be a short video. I don't even know what I'm going to call this video yet, but you see this guitar in my hands again, and you saw it in the last video that I put up, where originally I'd called it an Epiphone Masterbilt Texan. Turns out that wasn't true. It's not a Masterbilt. It is what's called, and it's misleading, inspired by Texan. If you look in the sound hole at that sticker, what you're going to see is inspired by Texan. And that's what this is. I have no clue where it was made. I don't think they make this guitar anymore. I went to the Epiphone website. I can't find it anywhere on there. The only Texan I can find is of the Masterbilt collection. I can't prove this, but because Epiphone's terrible with specs, I think we all know that. They built some great guitars, but not all the guitars they ever built were great. This one, POC, folks. Figure out what that means. I would say POS, but I think I'll say POC, just in case there's children. This is a thinner body, and this was pointed out to me, by the way, by a gentleman in the last video, and I should have looked before I started this video. But I'm thankful to him because he actually pointed out to me that this was not a Masterbilt. And I never even considered that it wasn't. I don't know why I didn't. Masterbilt say Masterbilt in the sound hole. But this one didn't say that. It said inspired by Texan. So if that means somebody took a photograph of the Texan and they just built a guitar that kind of looked like it, okay, it was inspired by the Texan. But from a sound quality standpoint and a build quality standpoint, it is nowhere near a Texan. All right. This explains why, David L., you love your Epiphone Masterbilt Texan. Because that's not this guitar. The one you have is probably a wider depth, or has it's a deeper, the depth on the guitar is greater than on this guitar. Okay. I don't think the sides on this guitar are solid mahogany. I'm not convinced the back is either, but it may be. I'm not exactly what you would call qualified to answer that question, but I would say based off of some of the other guitars that I have, I'm going to say that's a solid back. It's got a Sitka spruce top, may or may not be solid, but I can see plainly that that is spruce. Okay. Whether it's Sitka or not may be up for debate, but I can't find this guitar anywhere. On the Epiphone website, on Reverb, everything I find on Reverb says Masterbilt. So I think the reason that some of you have this Texan, or have a Texan that was built overseas, not in the States, and you rave about how good it sounds, is because you don't have this Texan. All right. Apparently, I may be one of the only knuckleheads left that actually bought this thing. So, always frustrating to think about buying this guitar again. But, you know, you buy online, you roll the dice, right? And sometimes you learn a hard lesson. I've got a couple. I've got one over here that, on this side over here of the wall of this picture, that is... And I've said it in a very early video, it's wall art. You know, I just kind of looked at it like it was a $500 painting, you know, which is what I gave for it. The one you can see on the wall right here behind me, that's the old 1970 Stella. And I love that guitar. I do some slide on it periodically. It's the only guitar really that I venture out much with slide guitar. But this is not a Masterbilt Texan. It is what's called an inspired by Texan. Don't confuse that with inspired by Gibson. The inspired by Gibson line, and I hate that they have branded things the way that they have, because the minute you see the word inspired by, you automatically, my mind would go to inspired by Gibson, where they knocked it out of the park. Well, inspired by Texan did not knock it out of the park. It should have never been in the park to start with. That's a guitar this guitar should have never been built and produced and sold. That's my opinion. Unless they put a $150 price tag on it, because in my opinion, it, maybe $150, and even then I wouldn't have bought it because it sounds like a piece of crap. This is the worst sounding guitar I've ever played, as I've mentioned before. So you say, well, how can you tell? Look, your sound hole is your friend. So when you buy a guitar, if you don't already know this, look in that sound hole and read that label. If it doesn't say where it was made, you need to find out, because that's question number one that I think should be answered. And not so much from a sound standpoint as it is a quality standpoint. And for the long haul, what materials were used? What can you count on for materials being used? And quite frankly, back when this one was built, and this is an older one, there was a lot of skimping went on with materials. And the craftsmanship was not there, which you could tell from that video before. You could tell from the sound. I'm going to leave it up so you can hear the guitar. I was going to strum on this a minute, but I'm not going to. It's that bad. There's another video that I got up. I'm going to keep it up. I retitled it and called it Inspired by Texan. So that's the video where I didn't realize that this was what it is, and Inspired by Texan. So I actually called it an Epiphone Texan Masterbilt. I've changed all that. I corrected everything in the description, but you can hear the guitar in that video if that's what you want to hear. You're not going to like it. I'm going to tell you up front. It's just not. Now, some of you said, well, it sounds okay to me. There's no way to truly communicate what a guitar sounds like. When you bear down on this one, it does overdrive. And that's not my system. I mentioned that in the earlier video. But folks, that's the deal. If you're going to buy a Texan, if you buy a USA-made Texan, you're probably going to get one that is killer. Just great. If you buy one in the Masterbilt factory, you're probably going to get a very good Texan. Because like I said, the depth is there on the body. You're going to get the volume. Not only that, but it's made in Indonesia. We'll kind of find out they did make these inspired buys, at least a lot of them, in China. This was a while back. So here's my word of caution if you're going to buy an Epiphone Texan. Do your homework. If it says Inspired by Texan, I would beg you not to buy it. So I wanted to put a video out and clear it up. I don't know what I'm going to title this thing yet, but whatever it is, it'll be the real scoop maybe on Epiphone Texan, the Epiphone Texan, because it is very misleading that there are three folks, of the Epiphone Texan out there. One Chinese version, one Indonesian version, and one USA-made version. And if you go across the pond to get one, you think you may be buying it from the Indonesian factory. You may in fact not be. Now, for all I know, they may have built this in the shop over there in Indonesia. They just didn't build it in the custom shop. But I don't think so. But it's possible. I do know that they built these in China, because what few specs I saw on this guitar, the Inspired by, they listed China as the ones that built the guitar. And I'm not saying that there's not some quality instruments coming out of China, but if you're going to buy a second-rate guitar, which is kind of what this would have been classified, no, this is one they did a very, very poor job on. Okay, so the reason I'm putting the second video out is be very cautious if you elect to buy one, and don't base your buying experience on luck, because if you're thinking, well, I'll buy one, hopefully it's from the Masterbilt. No, it needs to say it's from Masterbilt. Okay, so I don't know how to tell these things apart online because the specs are not clear, but you can bet your bottom dollar if it says Inspired by Texan, I wouldn't go down that road. I would want to see Masterbilt in there, and then I might want to get one. Okay? So just a word of caution, a little clearing up of that last video, and that's all I'll say about this guitar ever again. And now, here in a few minutes, I'll go do the last part of Windy and Warm and get it uploaded too. But I want to go ahead and get this one and get it released. So, folks, this guitar, no bueno. Take care of your friends. Take care of your family. God bless. We'll see you next time.